Today, I'm speaking with Ian Diaz, who's a UK based indie filmmaker with decades of experience in the game. His films have been featured on platforms like Netflix and Tubi, starred big name actors, and have earned awards across the board. But behind all that success is a story that's way more real. What it actually takes to sustain a long career in indie filmmaking without the big budgets. And also, what happens when your film gets picked up and you never get paid from it. We'll dive into his process, how he pulls off ambitious projects with limited resources, and the harsh realities between production and distribution. Here's my interview with Ian Diaz. So why don't you go ahead and give me some background into your path to filmmaking and what drives your storytelling?
In England, I know a lot of Americans don't know this, but in England, there's like a free tier system. There's working class, middle class, and upper class. And it's no mistake that Hugh Grant and Colin Firth are like one of the biggest stars, and they've all got that accent. They've been to Cambridge, they've been to Oxford, university and stuff like that. So I'm right at the bottom, I'm working class, and it's very difficult for working class people to become part of the British film industry because of the obvious, right? So when I was in my 20s, no, actually in my teens, I was trying to get into film companies and kept getting rejected left, right, and center for various reasons. And then I decided, okay, if I can't get into production, I'll get into post production. So I got into post production in a company called M2. At the time, MTV had just started up in England and Breakfast TV had just started up. So I got into this company as a runner and I ran for 3 years. And because I can draw, they kind of said, oh, do you want to be promoted to the graphics department? So I went to the graphics department and did graphics. In those days, it was Quantel, Paintbox, Harriet and stuff like that. It wasn't the powerhouse. You can't just get an ordinary computer and do what you do today. And so I came be a part of the graphics team, and I did Top of the Pops. Don't know if you know what that is over there. Big big music TV show, and I did some of the football. The graphics come up on screen. I did some of the football and stuff like that, and VHS sell-through films. I did titles for the menus and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that I was doing. Then one day I was just sitting there and I realized this is not really what I want to do because I kept getting promoted and I kept getting jobs and it was really good money. So I decided, look, I can't keep going like this. I've always wanted to direct. So I quit my job and became unemployed for 5 years. Tried to get freelance graphics work, but it wasn't coming through. Anyway, so one day I'm with my friend and we're sitting there and I say to him, we have to make a feature film. We have to. Because we made a couple of shorts, right? And he was saying, well, how are we going to do this? Remember, this is the time of no internet, no mobiles, a phone. You had to wait. You had to wait till 7 to use the phone because it was cheaper to use the phone. And so we were like, okay, let's put an advert in a newspaper. Then we went to a newspaper and it cost £1,000 to put an advert in a newspaper, a big newspaper. We didn't have £1,000, obviously. And then we were like lost. We're like, well, what are we going to do? So either it was my friend or it was me, we came across a magazine called Loot. And Loot is like eBay. It's like eBay. So if you want to sell, if you want to share a room, you either put it in eBay or you put a card on a window. In those days, you put a card on a window. And so well, let's look at Loot. And to put an advert in Loot, it was free. So we put an advert in Loot saying, if you want to be part of a feature film and you've got no experience, call this number. So we did that, and then suddenly the phone it just kept going. People kept ringing, we could pick it up and, they were interested and stuff like that. So this is how we sold it. Cut long story short, this is how we sold it. We went, you can either take £1,000 or you can go on some crappy BBC course and learn nothing, or you can give us £1,000. We'll chuck you in the deep end and you'll learn. So 14 people said yes. We raised £14,000 and we shot our first film. That's the short end. That's the short way or explaining what happened. But it was very difficult, obviously, because we only had £40,000. And plus, there wasn't digital video in those days. We were shooting on Super 16. So, it was very, very difficult. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't have the experience of working on a feature film, because I've made shorts with my friend, and the shorts, like, more or less cost less than 1,000 to make. So the idea was, if you made 3 shorts, then that'd be 3,000, and if you made them all 20 minutes long, maybe it'll equal 90 minutes. That was the idea, right? But it didn't work out that it really didn't work out that way, because making a feature film is a different animal to making a short. Um, so I literally almost died making that film. The Killing Zone, it was the very first film I ever made. I wrote it, I directed it, I produced half of it. I didn't edit it. My friend edited it. Peter edited it. He did a really good job on it. Um, and I'm telling you, it was really, really difficult. It was getting up at 9, shooting till 1 in the morning, going to sleep for a couple of hours, then getting back on set. One time we were shooting something, we finished shooting at 4 o'clock in the morning, then we had to sleep 2 hours sleep or whatever, and then get back on the set. It really was that punishing. And most of the crew were inexperienced people. We had an experienced cameraman, we had experienced DOP, and we had experienced actors, but most of that was working underneath me was inexperience. I mean, if you've got the triangle, we always say this, if you've got the triangle, if you've got the experienced DOP, experienced cameraman, experienced director, then things should work out. Doesn't matter what level the people below that triangle is, it should work out. And it did work out, but it was very difficult. There was lots of tantrums on sets. There were people that were trying to bring the production down. We formed a company called the 712 Collective, which was the production company. We were lucky to have one of the people that donated money was a lawyer, so he was taking care of the paperwork, and we achieved the impossible. Let me tell you something, right? It sounds really simple, but it wasn't. It was so hard. It was the hardest thing I ever done in my entire life. I drew storyboards for everything, so I knew exactly what I was shooting. We were going 2 takes only because film is very expensive. We were using short ends. I don't know if you know what short ends of a film is. Short ends. We were buying short ends. So basically, when they shoot a feature film, whether it be in 16 mil or 35 mil, what's left in the can, they cut it and they put it away, and they roll it on another can. So we were buying short ends to make our film, right? And today, right, if you shoot on digital, you shoot and then you kind of play it back and you go, oh, that looks okay, let's move on. But when you shoot, when you're shooting a 35 or 60 millimeter, it goes like this. It goes action, cut, check the gate, which means you have to open the lens, look at the little square of the gate because it's Super 16, get a torch and see if there's any hair in that gate. If there's a hair in that gate, you're shooting again, because if you don't shoot again, you all have is a little hair fluttering around in your frame. So every time we shot something, we had to do that. So that's why we were all prepared, because I always say to people that I work with today, you have no idea what it's like to shoot on film. You guys are running around, strutting around, you can shoot as many takes as possible. But when it was important that you get it right on the first 2 takes, you have to be prepared, right? So, but kids don't understand that today, right? They're kids when they got digital. But anyway, that's how I started, and I made my first feature film, and for a miracle, we completed it somehow, and we took it to Cannes, because in those days, Cannes would give you a venue to screen it in, and we screened it at Cannes. And we went to the screening. 2 people were at the back and 1 person at the front, and it was just me and Julian, a producer. And we thought, nobody's going to buy our film. And then as we left the theatre, this guy comes running out and he says, did you make that film? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I want to buy it off you. And we were like, nah. And he kept offering us money. He kept saying, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. And we just kept walking away from him. And before we reached the end of the road, he said he'll give us this. And it was so much, because we were so skint. We turned around and said, okay, fine. Right. And it was like, I think it was 20 times our budget. But in those days, people were hungry for independent films. And we kind of sold it short, really. We should have waited out for other distributing companies to watch it, because quite frankly, Killing Zone is a good film. And it came out at the time where independent films were huge. But we were so desperate, we needed the money. We were so poor. we were in Cannes. We didn't have any money to do anything. Do you know what I mean? So it was a stressful time. So we took the money, and it was a success. It did really good business on DVD and VHS, um, and that's how I got started. That's how I got started.
To clarify, the Killing Zone, that's the one you made for 14,000 quid?
Yep.
So you're actually, most of the people who I talk to, they all own their films. So I'm curious the process here as far as selling the film. When that person offered to buy your film, were they just buying you're just handing over the copyright to it essentially, I assume?
Yeah, it was a standard distributing deal, which is they take it on, they try to sell it, and but he just brought it outright. Do you know what I mean? But I don't. He doesn't own the copyright to it. He just brought it out so that he can sell it.
So is it like a term deal then? Like he's got it for this many years or whatever,
Yeah,
and then you
yeah,
get it back? Okay.
yes, it was more or less. In those days, I would say that distributors were honest in those days. You know, I my second film, my second big film, I got screwed royally with my other film, but that was because it was years later. It was like 10 years later. But with the Killing Zone, at least the guy gave us. At least we saw the money, and it went into the account, and we are like, okay, do you know what I mean? So, but with distributors years later, they would say, oh, they put all kinds of things not to give you money. Like we had to pay for the hotel, we had to pay for the poster, we had to pay for this, we had to pay that. Do you know what I mean? So they put all those things in front of you before they give you any money at all. Plus, they were trying to sell your film with, hundreds of other films that they got on their catalog, which doesn't help either.
Before we move on, I wanted to quickly go over some of the ways that you can support me. The easiest way is subscribing to my channel and watching my latest videos. I've also started a membership program that gives you early access to videos before they go live. It starts at just $3 a month on YouTube and Patreon, and if memberships aren't your thing, you can buy individual posts directly on Patreon without the membership fee. My feature film Cashing Out is available to watch on major platforms like Amazon and Apple TV, and you can even watch for free on platforms like Tubi, Plex, and YouTube. If you want to support directly, there's a pay what you want option on my own OTT platform that starts at just $2. And if you do watch the film, it would mean the world to me to leave a review on IMDb, Letterboxd, or your favorite platform. Lastly, if you're interested in my future film projects, you can sign up for my email list. I have some exciting new films that I can't wait to share with you all. All of these items will be linked in the description below. Thank you so much for the support. Now let's get back to the show. So you said something really interesting while you were explaining all that. You said if you have a director, a director of photography, and a camera operator, usually the rest just kind of works itself out. Do you think that still rings true today, or are there any other positions you think are kind of, I don't want to say worthwhile is probably the wrong terminology here, but just something essential that you think is helpful, especially compared to making a film, or you worked on a series too now compared to back when you were doing that film?
I still think it holds true. It's only because most I know most of the jobs on set. I know about set decorating, I know about directing, I know about camera, I know about lighting. I mean, I'm not going to do all these things. I had people like in my last thing. There was someone that lit the thing and was on camera and stuff like that. Because I've learned you can only do so much as one person. Robert Rodriguez can shoot a whole film on his own. That's Robert Rodriguez, right? I can't do it. Not anymore, anyway. Put it that way. So I do still think it rings true if you know what you're doing. In fact, the last thing I did, we didn't even have we had a first assistant director. A second and a third were non-existent. They never existed at all. So you can drop, because of the technology, you can drop people out. Do you know what I mean? You can drop them out. Plus, if you're on a location, okay, you're not. There's no set designer. There's just a set dresser. Do you know what I mean? Look at the frame and dress the set. That kind of thing. So there's loads of little things that you can do shortcuts on and stuff like that. But I still think it holds true. If you've got a good DOP, because the look of the film is very important now when it comes to digital photography. Camera work is very important. The director obviously is very important because he's the one that has the vision for things. And yeah, I think it still holds true today. I don't know what you think, but I think it does.
Well, for me personally on my film, I worked, I mean, I pretty much did all the main jobs. Like I directed it, obviously. I produced it, so doing all the scheduling and just figuring out all the logistics. I had a secondary director of photography when she was available, but that was more of a camera operator than anything else. I mean, I pretty much designed the look of the entire thing. um, and then I had a boom operator, so I think sound is obviously very important. I would love to have that, but so like it was kind of interesting when I was doing it because like my boom operator, it was like a team, but they lived 3 hours away from where we were shooting the film, so they were only available on certain days. So I had like I have a Rode NTG2 and a Zoom H6 on like I took a monopod and converted that into a boom pole. Like I've never owned an actual boom pole in my entire life, so I just converted that. So on days they weren't available, that's just what we had, and I just had to make it work, right? Um, those would be nice too. But aside from that, it's like I feel like everything's almost a luxury at this point. Anybody else, so I can get on.
There is a trick though with sound. Almost anyone can be a boom swinger as long as they put the directional mic close to the person. because of the, but there is a trick. So this is a trick that I always use every time I shoot something. Mind you, it's if I have time. I always make after everything's done, and the sound guy's got the Atmos sound, which I never use anyway because I've got Atmos. I've got loads of sound effects on my computer. I always tell the actors to sit down and to read from the script. So if they read from the script, if the sound is bad, I can always dub it. And if it goes out of sync, I can always cut to the other person. Do you know what I mean? So, and also the stuff that they have in editing systems now with AI, it's pretty good knocking out sound in the background and, and making the sound just like the sound that's on set. So technology's made it far more easier now than it ever was.
So it's really interesting that you say that because I've never been able to say this on camera. And if I make another film, I think I'm going to do this. I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but like I thought to myself, if I ever make another film, I want to just do like a sound take. So cameras aren't rolling, just have them in their natural environment. So like just have them do exactly what they're doing, but I'm going to follow one character around with just the boom pole, get as close as I can to get that clean dialogue. Cause I'm watching my film and the sound isn't always great. There's refrigerators running and all sorts of background noises, right? And I'm like, if I would have just got a little closer, I would have been able to kill that sound.
That is the trick, isn't it? And also, again, right, sometimes you don't have time to make the actor sit down and read from the script. Like, for instance, on Rebecca Gold, which is the last thing I directed, we're in a park and there's a scene in it where the two characters sitting on a park bench, and right across from us is a school and they're playing football, and you can hear the sound, and behind is a train station. Okay, we didn't have much choice. We shot there. But because when we went back to the location, we got them to read from the script. And actors are good. They when they say something, they have this tone. And then when you get them to read, it's the same tone. So more or less the dialogue matched with what they were saying. Do you know what I mean? Because when they're in their zone, they're in their zone. So most of those scenes are when they were back in the other location and they're talking. So I kind of dubbed it right over, and it really worked really well. I was quite surprised, especially when you have two really good actors. I had two really good actors on that day. I had George and I had Ella, who plays the main character, and both of them are spot on. When they do a performance, if you say cut and you want them to start again, it's the same performance, it's the same tone, it's the same way of speaking. So when we took an hour to go back to the next location and I got them to read from the script, it was the same tone, it was the same speed. So I mean, some of it drifted off slightly, but as I said, you can always cut to the other actor listening and then cut back to the guy and then put the sound back in. So yeah, sounds really important, really really important. I mean, you, like we got like the last film, Rebecca Gold, the last thing I did, right, was very low budget, okay? and we couldn't afford crash mats, right? So there's people getting shot, and when they fall, right, the actors can't fall properly. So what I do is I make them fall a bit, then I cut, and I cut back to somebody else, and you hear the sound of them falling, but you don't notice it when you're watching. In your head, you see that guy fall, right? So those are the kind of tricks I learned by editing. I've edited for a very long time. Over 20 years, I've been editing drama, for various things and stuff like that. So I know all the tricks, right? So yeah, I get it. Sounds really, really important, but experience tells you what you can get away with. And because I've been directing and doing silliness for so long, when I'm on set, I know what I can get away with. Sometimes I say to you, right, I I work with young people, right? And sometimes I go, all right, we've done that. It's good. Let's move on. They're like, well, wait a sec. We need to do this. I'm like, no, because I've already edited it in my head. I know what's going on. So, but they don't understand. So they get very frustrated. And I'm like, well, believe me when I tell you, we don't need that shot. So yeah, that's that's how I roll.
So I'm really curious. You obviously had the challenge of shooting on 16 millimeter, which actually, this is going to sound silly, but it's kind of my dream to shoot a project on 16 at some point. Yeah. Yeah. It's probably never going to happen, but I would love to do it. I just love the look of 16 millimeter film. But I'm curious, especially because you just wrapped up your Rebecca Gold season 2, correct? I think you told me.
Yeah,
So
one more day to do, and that's it.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what were kind of the challenges of shooting the Killing Zone back in '99 compared to this most recent project?
For directing and producing The Killing Zone, again, I would say it was a nightmare because we only had 2 weeks to shoot it. We had £14,000, 2 weeks to shoot it, right? And we were dealing with an inexperienced crew. Okay, people. So you get kind of three people that are on the set. You get one that really wants to help with the move. You get one that just wants to socialize, and one who thinks it's really cool to be there but don't want to do any work. So that's what you're dealing with, right, on the day. But most of the time they are working, because if you stand around doing nothing, you fall asleep, and that's no lie. You just literally fall asleep. So it was very difficult, okay, because some of us didn't know what we were doing. Some of the things that I was doing wasn't really. I'll give an example. Okay, so we had a first, right, that joined us, and she worked for the BBC, and it was I can't remember what her name was. Actually shouldn't say it on this. Anyway, she was annoyed because it was coming to 10 o'clock in the night, and we were meant to finish at 6. Okay, and she's going to me, look, Ian, we have to stop. The crew's tired. We need to stop, and we need to come back another day to finish it. So I said to her, what are you talking about? I said, do you have the money for me to come back the next day? And she said, no. And I said, well, we're not stopping. And she goes, everybody's going to be angry with you. And I said, okay. So I went out to them, and the crew was like about 57 to 60 strong, the crew. It was a really big crew because everybody's working for nothing, right? And I stood up on an apple crate and I said, we are going to go till 4 o'clock in the morning. We cannot leave this set unless we finish what we're supposed to shoot. Otherwise, the film won't be completed. If anyone doesn't want to stay, they can leave now. There's no hard feelings, and we'll see you in the morning. Nobody left. No one left. And then my friend Frank, who's one of the grips, he got his credit card out and he bought loads of beers. So like at 3 o'clock in the morning, we were drunk. All of us were drunk, and we were shooting this thing, and we completed. And my first left the project because she's like, this is not the way you shoot a movie, right? This is not the way you shoot a movie. And it's like, you may come from that world, but we're in this world. You know what I mean? So that's one kind of pressure that we had when we were making The Killing Zone. With Rebecca Gold now, I'm always trying to think of ways how to make a feature film without hardly any money. I have a job, right? I have a day job where I direct corporate videos and stuff like that. And through that, because I remember my dad always used to say to me, nothing bad that happens never something right, wait a moment. Something that happens that's bad that happens to you always leads to something good, right? Always, no matter what happens, always leads to something good. And he's right. Okay, right. So I'm always trying to think of ways of how to make a feature film with no money at all. So what we did with so we made the first season of Rebecca Golden. It was really successful. It won a ton of awards on in the festival unit run. It won a crap load of awards, and I was really happy with it. So I asked everybody if they wanted to do season 2, and they said yes, especially the main star. But the main star, she got pregnant, so so I had to recast somebody else to play Rebecca. And so I should have given up a long time ago. So my main star dropped out because she was pregnant, and for other reasons as well. Then we cast a really young girl, and we shot an opening scene with her, and I was kind of happy with her. And then I get a call from her saying that she was getting too stressed and she can't do it anymore. Because we just spent money shooting this thing with her, and she's getting. And I was like, oh, so she quit. So I should have quit, right? I should have quit there and then, but I didn't because I'm so stupid, right? And then, right, I directed this horror film, the worst thing I've ever directed in my life. I was hired gun on this film. It was terrible. It's a terrible movie. And there was this actress in it. And the producer of that movie rang me up because I told the producer off because the producer was useless. I give an example. We were on set, and there's a scene here where somebody jumps off a balcony, and we get on set, and I said, "Where's the balcony?" And she said, "What balcony?" That's how bad they were, right? So from that film, there was an actress in there, and I rang her and I said, "Do you want to meet? I might have an idea for you." And I met, and I said, "Do you want to do this?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "If you say yes, right, you're going to have to be committed to it 100%. I'm not going to give you a contract. I'm going to have faith in humanity." Right? It's a stupid thing to say. I'm going to have faith in you that you will do it until it's finished. Okay? I don't know how long this is going to take me, but you got to promise. And she said, "Oh yeah, okay, I promise." So, and she was right. She did. So it's been 3 years. We started 3 years ago. This is the 3rd year. We were shooting twice a month on the first year, twice a month halfway through the second year, but I was running out of money, so we're shooting once a month on that second year. And this year we're shooting once a month. So 3 years. And the reason why it's 3 years was because I knew how much it was going to cost. I was tired of shooting things where you have to use what you got. And I can't write this because you can't afford it. I was like, screw that. I'll write exactly what I want and figure it out. So I wrote exactly what I want. And I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? Right. So, but the thing is, though, it appears, if you move forward, there's no way you're going to move back because you're moving forward. Right. So it was like getting a bit of money, shooting it, getting a bit of money, shooting it, getting a bit of money, shooting it. And this is the 3rd year. I almost finished. I've got one day to shoot and I should be finished. Right. So in other words, right, if you don't have all the money together, if you've got people that you trust and people like what you're doing, they will stick with you. Like Ella, she stuck with me for 3 years, and we've had 4 different DOPs on it. I think Tom is the one that's done the most, and he's still helping me out. People were getting paid very little. Some of them weren't getting paid at all. But the thing is, though, when you shoot that way, the best thing about it is when you edit the rushes together and you grade it and you put the sound effects in it, you look at it, sometimes you see things that are missing, right? And then you show it to the DOP, and the DOP is like, "Oh, didn't know it was going to be that good." And that encourages him to keep moving forward. And with the actors as well, it encourages them to keep moving forward as well. So I learned that making this because I've never done something like this before that's taken so long. But when I look at all the stuff now, I think, you know what? We've done really well with the little money that we've had for the 3 years. This is the 3rd year coming up. So I hope that encourages people that you don't really, if you have friends and you trust them, you don't really need all the money up front. All you need to just keep going. Just keep going. Have faith that you'll complete it. And because like one of the actors dropped out, right? Broke my heart and dropped out. And I was sitting there, my hand in my head going, "Oh, what am I going to do with this character?" So I calmed myself down and I thought very carefully and I thought, no, I'm not going to get rid of this character. What I'm going to do is go create a new character that takes orders off that character. So that character's still in the film, but I have this new character now stepping into his shoes, but he's a completely new character. So there's always ways around the problem, if you know what I mean. If you have faith and if you believe in what you're doing, I think you should just forge forward. You'll get a lot of negativity. I got a lot of negativity from people. I got a lot of people saying the script was rubbish and what are you doing and all this nonsense. And if you listen to them, then you're an idiot. What you have to do is it doesn't matter if it turns out to be bad and a lot of people say it's bad, then you've learned anyway, right? But nobody can take it away from you. You've made another movie. My idea is just to make a body of work. That's my challenge before I die. Just make a body of work, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Going back to kind of the infrequency of shooting, this is what I'm really curious about. So like I've had that thought too, like, just spreading some things out, but you do have to put a lot of faith in humanity, but you also have to put a lot of faith in yourself because, from your perspective, I'm really curious, like, how are you maintaining momentum, creative focus, and just consistency? I mean, you said you worked with four different directors of photographies, which isn't super uncommon in like Hollywood. Whereas if you're doing like a TV show, it might be a different DOP episode to episode, but it might be a little more difficult for a shoot like this because you might not be able to get somebody who has the same style as your previous director of photography. So how did that work as far as, your shooting timeline over these last 3 years?
Well, it's not that anymore. We're talking. Look, if you're shooting on film, yeah, that's when you start worrying because film's a different medium. You've got to get it right. Remember, and before digital technology happened, the DOP knew his stuff. He had a light meter. He had a measuring tape. He knew that when it was printed, what he put on film is what you get, right? But with the technology today, I have three different DOPs. I can literally make everything look the same or the same style by grading it because there's a crap load you can do via grading. Even I don't even grade on DaVinci. Everybody's saying, "Oh, we should change to DaVinci," but I don't think it matters on what program you use. As long as you know what you're doing, as long as you can figure out what the tone. Look, the thing I hate in most you ever see the film The Batman, the last Batman film?
The Matt Reeves Batman?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
see that one?
Hmm.
And have you seen The Penguin, the TV show?
I have not watched The Penguin yet.
Okay, the thing I hate about modern DOPs now is that they use one color to light a whole film. Like the Batman was all orange all the way through, all orange, right? I mean, you see different colors in there, but the actual tone of the show was kind of orange, really, and that seems to be the trend going all the way through movies these days. In Rebecca Gold, I decided, okay, one scene's going to be this color, one scene's going to be this color, one's going to be that color. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like true to what you see when you're shooting it, if you know what I mean. Right? I don't want to put a filter over some of the stuff I've shot. I think I love colorful frames. I like colorful frames, but also I have to make sure that the frame is composed properly as well, because a lot of directors don't do that. They just shoot. What's one thing I hate is shooting on a white wall. It's like if there's a white wall, I'm like, no, put something on it. I don't want to see a white wall because you never see a white wall in TV shows or movies because they know it looks stupid, right? So I give an example, right? And because of the technology we got today, you can do so many things. Like for instance, okay, we had this scene in it with our main character. She's an assassin. She's going to kill these two guards, and she comes up near a white wall. And we shot it because we didn't have anything to put on the white wall. And in post, what I did is I added things. I added a lamp because you can do that now on Photoshop. You can AI can generate something for you. So it generated a lamp which was out of focus. So it gave it depth of the shot, where she was standing. I put a painting on the wall. Do you know what I mean? So you can do that now. I even extended a shot where one of the main characters talking in a bedroom, and the bedroom was tiny. And so you can do that. You can extend the set via AI, and I've done that too. add stars to the sky, make a stream of light come from a window. You can do all that stuff now, That's what I'm saying. I think the DOPs today, you know, they don't know half of the stuff that people used to know when they used to direct on 35 and Super 16. But for us poor people, it's a gift, isn't it? The technology, the AI technology now, it's a complete gift. So you can do stuff like that. And as I said, I had 3 DOPs. They've all had various different styles, but I can literally correct them and make them look more or less the way I want it to look now because of technology. So
So I'm curious, when it comes to micro budgets, what corners do you think you can cut and what do you think can't be touched?
you have to have a good DOP, right? Even if you're shooting on digital, in my opinion, you can't cut that corner as far as I'm concerned. Good camera person, you can't cut that corner either. Director, you can't cut that corner. Actors, definitely actors. You can't cut that corner either. And that's about it. Everything else, you can have people of various experience, set dresser, set designer, costume person, makeup. Makeup people are always the hard to make work because they'll come and they'll do someone and then they'll sit around all day. Really what they're supposed to be doing is being on set and looking at the monitor. And if someone's hair is out of place, they jump in and fix their hair. But no, every time I'm looking in the monitor and I see someone's hair out of place, I'm always shouting makeup and they're on the stairs or something or in the next room or I keep telling them you should always be in the, but today I don't shout at anybody because when I first started, I was like James Cameron shouting at everybody. But now I've learned that's not the way really. If you want somebody to do something, look, okay, let's put it this way. If you have a problem with anything, the worst way you can solve the problem is to have a go at the person who caused that problem because that doesn't get you anywhere. To solve that problem is to find out how to solve that problem, if you know what I mean, right? So instead of, like, for instance, I give an example. We had a makeup girl supposed to do makeup on this girl. And I was sick one day, so I couldn't direct. And I told my friend to direct this sequence for Rebecca girl, and he did. When I saw the rushes, she didn't have the right makeup on the girl's face. I sent her pictures via text and circled on the person's face what I wanted, and she still didn't do it, right? So there's 2 things I can do. Next time I see her, I can either shout at her and say, look, you're going to cost me more money because I have to reshoot that thing again, or I can just solve the problem. Do you know what I mean? And I choose to solve the problem because I learned that if I shout people, I get stressed, they get stressed. There's no point. I don't want to get stressed. I want to live long and prosper, of course. So yeah, it's that's the only way to solve problems is to actually find a way of solving the problem. And the way to solve that problem is to reshoot and find some extra money, which is what I'm going to do. So yeah.
So you hinted at this a little bit earlier, but your film Bad Days streaming on Netflix and Tubi in the US, but you mentioned that you haven't been paid by the distributor. So one I'm curious, how did you get on Netflix? Because obviously, that's the behemoth, right? But I'm just curious about your experience as a whole with distribution with frankly all of your projects throughout the years. I'm curious just to see kind of the timeline of how things have changed over the years.
We signed with this company. I obviously can't mention their name, which was over 10 years ago. So the film's called Bad Day and was the first time we were shooting on digital. And we made this film and we had a big pop star in it called Sarah Harding. And the distributor took it on and we were like, do you know who Sarah Harding is? And they went, no. So that was a good big red flag for us. But nobody was taking it on. And we were like, we gave them all these posters and stuff so they can promote and stuff. They used none of it. They didn't even make the effort to try and sell it. So we got completely screwed. And every time you send an email, you get nothing back from them. So basically, I was told it was on Netflix by a friend. They didn't even tell me they put it on Netflix. So again, right, what do you do? Do I ring up and shout at the distributor? No, there's no point in that because he's not even going to answer the phone. So what I do is I use it. I go, look, my film's on Netflix. Do you know what I mean? People give me respect. My film's on Netflix. That's all I can do, really. I mean, to actually sue them, I need to hire a lawyer, and I don't have the money to. Would I rather pay a lawyer to sue them, or would I rather get my own money to make another film? I'd rather make another film. Do you know what I mean? So look, anyone that does something bad always gets it in the end. It's part of karma. It's part of life. If you believe that, I believe it though. So they'll get theirs in the end, right? So I haven't seen a penny from it. The film had loads of stars in it, loads of UK stars in it. Let me tell you about that one. That film cost $8,000 to make. Would you believe? $8,000. We had the guy from Snatch in it, Robbie G. We had Claire Goose, who was big. Who was big at the time, all because they liked the script, all because they wanted to be in a script. Basically, it was a cop movie, right? And Britain don't make cop movies. They always make, I don't know, costume drama stuff, but they don't make cop movies. And so when I sent the script out, everybody's like, this is a cop movie, I want to be part of it. Because like Claire, she was in a main star, Claire, she was in a show called Waking the Dead. And it was a cop drama. And I said to her, well, why do you want to do this? You were in a cop show. And she goes, because in that cop show, I never got to run around. I never got to hold a gun. I never got to fight. And I do all this stuff in the film. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. You want to be part of the film. You want to be part of the film. So I can see why Netflix took it on, because it's a cop movie. And basically it's a homage to the 70s cop movies. So in the 70s and the I think 70s or the 80s cop movies, they had these things in it, like the screaming black boss. We've got the screaming black boss. The main character always has a cool car. We've got a cool car. The rookie, we've got a rookie. The experienced wary cop, we've got that. Do you know what I mean? Running down the street with a gun, we got that. The back projection shots, we got that. Do you know what I mean? So we just did. That was the film. It was meant to be a tribute to all those movies, and that's what we shot. And it was very people did like it when they saw it. They actually, people loved it. But when you shoot on digital at that moment in time, we only had one lens on there, so we didn't have any depth of field shots or anything like that. What you saw was what we shot at the end of the day. But people do like that film because it has a certain amount of action in it, and it's an interesting premise. And it's all obviously all set in one day because it's called Bad Day. It wasn't called Bad Night. It was called Bad Day. So yeah. So there you go. I never saw a penny.
What about from the Killing Zone? Because you talked about the distribution deal on that. Are you still in that deal right now, or have you taken it elsewhere?
No, they've stopped selling it. They've sold it around the world. It's done its rounds. That's as far as I know. It's done. It's on my channel, the Rebecca Gold channel. If you want to watch it, it's on there. It's the problem is that when we shot it, it was all shot in Super 16, it was all edited, and we had a house holding the print, and you have to give money for every year for them to hold the print. But we just couldn't afford it, so they destroyed the film. So the only thing we have now is I have a digibeta of the copy, which is in 4:3. And I have a VHS. I have a DVD here. Look, look. Oh God. When I saw the cover of this DVD, I was crying. It was so bad. Look at this. Yellow. The fuck is this? This is how they sold it 20 years ago, right? I can't think of anything worse. Look how bad that is. We had a better poster. I'll send you the poster. The poster's so cool, and they decided to put the DVD out with that stupid thing, orange. So there you go.
You know what you just said there about the film and them having to hold it. That's a problem I hadn't even considered. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to come back to distribution here in a second, but since you mentioned working with all those actors, I'm curious, what was your takeaway from that experience, being able to work with a little higher profile actor on such a low budget film?
So before I made Bad Day, I was hired. I was a hired gun on this slasher movie called Fallen Angels, which I worked for a Canadian company. They saw a previous film that I directed, and they were really surprised how cheap it was. So they hired me to direct the slasher movie that was shot over here. And I worked with Michael Ironside and Jeff Fahey. And I was really scared because the producer kept saying, "Oh, Michael Ironside doesn't take fools lightly. He's gonna be he's gonna be mean to you and stuff like that." When the guy turned up, he was nice. He was nice. He was the nicest person I ever met. Michael Ironside, fantastic guy. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, and Jeff Fahey was really nice to me as well. He was the one thing I learned from Jeff is we were shooting a scene and he did a line and I said cut and I said that's terrific, Jeff. And he went, Ian, do you want me to do another one? I'll do 3 versions, so you got 3 versions to edit on when you edit it. And I was like, oh, that's good. So I learned that from him. And working with profile actors, for me anyway, it's a pleasure because you learn from them, and they just want to act. Like I remember one day we were shooting this scene. It was the only day that Jeff and Michael were on set, and they're both very different actors. And Michael was mucking around and taking a mickey out of me and stuff as he always does. And then Jeff was just sitting in the corner. So I said, Michael, I said, you know Jeff, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, so you're not going to talk to him? And he goes, oh, it's his process. He just sits there and he stares out to space. Just leave him be. And yeah, so that's another thing I learned, that actors have their way of dealing with things, and stuff like that. So working with those two was fine with me. It's the actors that have less experience. That's when the problems start. I remember Michael Ironside said to me, he said, you can always tell the good actors is if you go into the green room and you see actors mucking around and laughing and stuff like that, and you look in the corner and you see one of them with a book and he's reading, you know that he is a good actor. The rest of them are just mucking around because that's all they can do, really. They're focused, they're not. And it's true, that is true. So I learned that from them. But with some actors gave me a hard time because they just weren't experienced enough. I would say to one person, you run through here, you bang into the wall, and then you run again, turn over the camera, the girl runs into the wall, it's like she taps the wall. I'm like, you're scared some guy with a knife's coming behind you. You have to sell it. But she couldn't sell it because she didn't want to, right? And then there was a scene with Jeff Fahey, and we say to him, right, so we had this stunt guy that set the set on fire. So there was fire everywhere, controlled fire, of course. And I say to Jeff, look, so the character falls over. There's these barrels, and he falls over the barrels. And I'm gonna get Dave to do that because Dave was the stunt man. And Jeff was like, no, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. There's no problem. I'll do it. Action. He falls over the thing. So that's what I mean. That's the big difference between like an actor that really wants to be there and an actor that's just there for the money or trying to get more, more exposure. But working with experienced actors is not a problem, especially if they're really experienced. With Claire Goose, she was so amazing. You'd say to Claire, look, the one thing I have learned is to stay clear when there's an emotional scene. So there was a scene in it where Claire was in the car and she's talking to this guy that she loves, and she starts crying. And I say to Claire, okay, so there's this scene, this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then I shut the door and I tell everybody to shut the hell up and step back, right? And I said to Claire, just put your hand up when you're ready, because Claire has to get into that space where she has to cry, right? And she's like, thinking and thinking and thinking. She puts her hand up and then we shoot. So, but sometimes crew members don't know that and they start chatting, and you have to take them aside and you have to say, look, this is what's happening. Shut up. Do you know what I mean? It's important we get this performance. I've learned a lot of stuff of experienced actors, and I would say to you, if you're going to work with an experienced actor, don't be scared, but and you'll probably find that you'll learn a lot off them, and if they're good, they'll respect your opinion and your view, and they will do what you want. 9 times out of 10 they do.
So you described yourself earlier as a working class filmmaker who's, made things happen without the red carpets or anything like that. So I'm really curious, like, what's the hardest part of sustaining a career like that, especially like navigating like the emotional tolls of what's being considered successful by certain metrics, and, being especially when you're being financially shortchanged by the distributors when you hand over your project and you're like hoping to get something out of it.
With Killing Zone, we just sold it straight out. With um, we made a film called Dead Room, which was shot on DV. And I think the distributor that did Fallen Angels, they took that on. But that was like, it didn't cost anything to make that one. Um, with Fallen Angels, it was their film, and I was just a hired gun, so I just directed that one. With Bad Day now, that's the only time I've actually dealt with a UK distributor, and I'll never deal with one ever again. I don't trust them at all. That the nightmares I've heard from my other filmmakers that's given their films to distributors, it's just they never reply to your emails. They don't phone you. They don't tell you anything. They're just more concerned about saving their own company rather than pushing the film. I don't know what it's like now because I'm going to try Film Hub with Rebecca Gull, because Rebecca Gull season 2 is a feature film, because we shot a feature film. And once it's all stuck together, it is a feature film. So I might sell it that way. Do you know what I mean? But the experience I've had with distributors, one distributor wasn't very nice at all. And I swore that I will never deal with a distributor again. And that's the only experience I've had with distributors, to tell you the truth, is that one. But Film Hub sounds like a place I should try. Indie Rights is a place I'm going to try and see how that goes. So yeah, that's the only experience I've had with distributors.
But overall, aside from distribution, what do you think is the hardest part about sustaining this career that we're in?
Money's the hardest part. No matter what anyone says, right? You can wax lyrical about how good it is to shoot and work on sets and make your own thing, but money, you always have to have money to make something. And if you can solve that problem, you can start making stuff. I solved the problem. I realized that because I used to do this, and I still do corporate stuff, and I get paid very well. And it never occurred to me that I should use that money to make something. I think I only learned that, maybe 2 years ago. I was like, damn, why didn't I do this in the first place? So that's what I'm doing now. Not taking holidays and just spending money on being creative. I think the most important thing is that you have to be creative. If you're born with a talent, then I guess you should work it until you die. that's my outlook on life. Because I can't. If I gave up being creative, I think I'll just die.
That's actually that was going to be my next question, is like what keeps you going, especially when the industry doesn't give back? Is it just are you just purely passionate at this point? Cuz that's what I feel like too. Ever since I was a kid, like as little as like 7 or 8 years old, maybe even earlier, because I just always loved movies. I'm like, this is what I was meant for. I always knew. And I'm like, I don't, even if I don't make a film for 20 years, I still consider myself a filmmaker, right? Like it's coming up. 2027 will be 10 years since I shot Cashing Out. And honestly, that was the last I did a short film in 2020, but before that, I mean, that was the last thing I did, right? So I mean, I haven't even touched I mean, I've touched cameras obviously, but I haven't touched like a film set in quite some time. So I mean, are you just running purely on passion at this point, or do you think there's something deeper there?
Well, it's in progress, right? So I don't care how old I am. Every day you get up, every day you breathe, there's always a chance. That's the way I see life, right? And who knows, something might happen to Rebecca Gold, season 2 or feature film or whatever you want to call it, and it might lead me to somewhere else. And I think it will lead me to somewhere else, fingers crossed, right? So you just have to have faith on the journey. If you look, people can lie to themselves, right? I've met hundreds of people that had money and produced stuff and say this is what they were born to do. And they weren't born to do it because they gave up. And they weren't born to do it. It's only because they were in a situation of money. That's why they did it, right? But with people like us, and I'm speaking for you, obviously, it's the passion that runs through us that makes us keep doing it, right? I'm not married. I don't have any kids, right? I got close, but I don't have any kids, right? So, and I've always wanted to do this. And I figured out a way how to do it. So I'm doing it, right? the actual idea of working for Hollywood and, you know, and getting a million views on YouTube, that doesn't concern me. I know it sounds rubbish. I know that people are saying you can't make films without knowing the business and all that, blah, 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 blah. For me, it's about making and creating. If people like my stuff, then that's great. As long as I can make money and keep making stuff, and I think that's, for me, that's enough. But I got my fingers crossed that someone will discover me one day, and I will become a big filmmaker. But I don't really want to be famous. I just want the opportunity to keep directing and writing and shooting stuff. Even if I'm hired to direct a TV show, whatever, like a series, I'll do that. Do you know what I mean? I just want to do it. Just keep working and create a body of work for myself. I think that's important to me anyway.
So, talking a little bit more about Rebecca Gold, you told me that it did well on the festival circuit. Um, I'm curious why a web series, and how do you think a web series like that can stand out in today's saturated landscape?
I purely did it because I was bored. No, no, that's not true. Well, so basically, I was doing my corporate stuff, and it didn't occur to me to use my money to make a film. And I went because I know Katie Sheridan was the first actress to play Rebecca Gold, and I went out to lunch with her, and she was moaning. She was like, "Oh, I don't get good parts, blah blah blah." And I said, "Okay, I've got something that I wrote ages ago, but I can write for you. That you can star in." And then I think it was 2 years later, I showed it to her, and she said, "Okay, I'll do it." And we did it. We shot it. I think it cost us £4,000. We were shooting over the weekends. It was only 5 episodes. 30. If you click them all together, it's 35 minutes long. So it's essentially a short. Basically, that's what it was. So I shot it, and then I was like, "Okay, this is good, right? Maybe I can shoot another one." And then I decided to do season two, and as I said, all those problems started. But it's just even if you make a short, even you got to keep your hand in all the time. I've got a friend, okay, who made a feature, and he hasn't shot anything in ages. And I say to him, "Look, I've got a camera because I've got all my equipment." I say to him, "Look, I've got a camera, got lights, whatever. You want to borrow it? Just let me know. Take it, shoot something. Don't talk about it. Just shoot something. Even if it's rubbish, at least you're learning. Just keep shooting." But no, he hasn't taken me up on that. That's my advice. Just if you've got access to cameras, write something, shoot it. If it's bad, so what? Keep shooting, keep shooting, and you'll get better and better.
Yeah, and you know what, on that thought too, because I have a very strong philosophy. Because like obviously, like going back to I think passion wasn't the right word. Purpose is probably the better word that I was looking for there. You had mentioned like some people will come into money and then they just don't want to finish, or they make one feature and they're done. Like I actually just talked to a filmmaker this week, and he said something really that kind of affected me. Well, I forgot exactly what he said, but you learn who you are as a person or just as a filmmaker after your first film, right? Your first film changes you essentially. So they make one film and they're like, okay, that's enough for me, right? But I know a lot of people too who don't finish their projects. And like one thing that I'm constantly trying to push on this channel is like, for pardon my French, finish your movie. You know what I mean? Like you owe the people who worked on it that, at least. So I think that kind of, I'm sure you would agree with that, but I'm curious if you have any other thoughts on that kind of statement there.
My mum always used to say to me, "Don't judge people by your own yardstick." It's a saying, right? And we have to realize that everybody's different, and people have different motivations and stuff like that. And so I can understand why people don't finish stuff, because their heart wasn't in it in the first place. They just tried it, and that was it. In other words, they're not really creative. They don't belong in the industry, and they've wasted everybody's time. It's just the idea of making something. It's the glamour that they're attracted to. But for me, it's got nothing to do with the glamour. For me, it's about creating. I've created several characters along the way. Just by myself writing, and that fulfills me. And I think that is the reason why I get up in the morning. You know, if I look at a computer screen, I'm writing something, you know. Um, but, you know, I am working all the time and I'm editing corporate stuff. So um, everything that we do connected to film always teaches you something, right? I know how to edit really fast now. And I didn't even go to editing school or anything like that. It's only because I'll give you another example, right? Do you remember, right, when you were young? This happened to me. When I was young and I used to watch TV, I could tell what was shot on video and what was shot on film. And I'd say to my dad, that's shot on video. And my dad would go, how could you tell? How could you tell? I'm like, but it's obvious. Look, you can see the feel of, you know, because you didn't quite understand that as a kid, but you knew instinctively what what was different about it, right? And it's the same thing when you take a photograph as well. When you take a photograph, you instinctively, if you have talent, you instinctively know what shot is composed right. Why does it look good? You can't explain it. But obviously, they do explain it now with the, you know, with the whatever. But if you had that when you're young, 9 times out of 10, you were born to be in this business, whether it be a photographer or a comic book artist or a filmmaker. If you can see those things that people can't see, then you owe it to yourself to nurture that talent, right? So if you have it, then don't give up. What breaks my heart is actors. I know a lot of actors through my 30 year experience. Really talented people that's just given up. You know, they've got kids, they got 9 to 5. And my heart breaks because I know how talented they are. And, you know, life has just beaten them down. And I'm always determined that life won't do that to me, you know. Um, I'll keep going until I can't keep going, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
So I'm really curious with all the projects you've done, you know, you've been working for a long time, but at this point, are there any creative risks or stories you've been wanting to tackle but haven't been able to yet?
Risks, every time you make a film, it's a risk. So that comes with the territory, I guess. I mean, every time I try to do an action film, I don't have enough resources to do it properly. I'd like to do a real good action film with a decent budget. I mean, Bad Day is an action film, but it's not action all the way. It has drama. It's got action, but it's not like John Wick or or you know, The Bourne Identity or Bond film. I like to do something with that kind of level of action, and I think I'd be pretty good at it as well. I just think you know, that deserves a good amount of money to shoot. Sometimes people can do it. Like I was watching a film that Gareth Edwards directed recently called, was it called Havoc? With it was just came on Netflix with Tom Hardy. It's okay. It's okay. The action's really good in it, but the story's really crap. But that's what I'm saying. I think I'd like to direct a film where the story is good and the action is good. I mean, if you look at John Wick, the action's good, but the story's kind of okay. It's just him being chased, him being chased by people trying to kill him. So I tried to do that, but I want to try and get it right. Rebecca Gull's got action in it, but it's not action all the way. I'd like to do a film where there's action all the way and the story connects with it, and the story's just as interesting as the shootouts and or the fights and everything, if you know what I mean. I'd love to do that. I had a script called Ice Angels about a British ice hockey team in England. It was a comedy that almost got commissioned when we were in Cannes, almost, and it fell through at the last moment. So I'm hoping if I find success that I can make that one. That's a comedy romance. I've always wanted to make a romance. And somebody said to me, the reason why I wrote that was because somebody said to me, I'll challenge you to write a sports film. And I hate sports. I hate football. I hate any kind of sports because that's not what I do. Um, and I was thinking, what sport do I like? And I was like thinking, the only sport I liked in film was rollerball. I don't know if you ever watched Rollerball, the 77 film with James Caan, because it was so violent, so visceral. And I thought, what's closest to rollerball? Ice hockey. So I wrote an ice hockey film with an all girl ice hockey team, and you know, and there was fights on the ice and all that nonsense. So that's what I wrote. So I'd like to make those two, but when it comes to risk, if you're not going to take a risk, you might as well just give up, you know, because that's what it's all about, really. If you fail, you fail. Don't be scared to fail. That's what I always say to people. Say you're a filmmaker and just keep going, you know? Just yeah, moving. Be a moving target because a moving target's hard to hit, right? So just keep moving. That's what I say.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit. So I don't know if this is a repeat question, but what do you hope people take away from your work and from your journey?
Just that they watch it and they enjoy it. Look, I'm no Spielberg. I'm no Cameron or not even Robert Rodriguez. I know I can make stuff and I make enjoyable stuff. And my stuff is not what other people are making either. So the line producer on my film, my friend, he's a good friend of mine. He's making shorts, and I call them bruv films. You're American to understand that. England, when they make films with black people in it, especially in South London, they always make bruv films. And when I say bruv films, it's like people going, right, bruv, 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 bruv. So it's like every film I see on Channel 4 puts money into now, because obviously they're into, diversity and all this nonsense and stuff like that. There's always bruv films around, right, bruv? And always beating people up and stuff like that. I don't make films like that. I made a Killing Zone, which was about an assassin who had 3 days to retire. I made Dead Room, which is about one room that people hire that horrible things happen to them. I made Fallen Angels, but that wasn't my film. It was a slasher movie. And I made Bad Day, which was a cop movie. And Rebecca Gold is about an assassin who's in love with a high school crush. So, I don't make Bridgerton. I I don't make Love Actually. You know what I mean? I make, because I love American films, right? So that's my jam. So I try to make films like that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going down the wrong road. Who knows? But
So I like to end my interviews all the same way. If you could be a fly on a wall for any film, I usually ask if they want to direct. I don't know if the directing is the right question to ask, but if there's one production you wish you could have just been on set for, what would it be and why?
oh, Close Encounters. Close Encounters made me want to become a director. So it was 19, was it 77? Yeah, so 77, right? And my brother said to me, come and see this film called Star Wars. And I saw the poster and I thought it was a musical. I was like, I'm not going to see a musical. And he was like, no, it's not a musical. I'm like, look at the poster. It's a musical. Because you know that poster where Luke's holding the thing and Princess Leia's like that. And I'm like, that's a musical. So he took me to see it. And I was blown away. I was like, this film is amazing. And I wanted to do special effects. I was like, that's what I want to do. I know what I want to do for my life, special effects. So I tried to get into special effects company, but they weren't letting me. And then the same year, Close Encounters was coming out in September, and I went to see Close Encounters. And there's a scene in Close Encounters. Have you ever seen the movie? Okay, so there's a scene in it where Richard Dreyfuss has built a mountain in his living room, and he's talking to his wife, trying to tell his wife to come home. And on TV, you can see the same mountain. And I was sitting in the cinema, in my head, I was going, "Look at the TV, you idiot! It's there, it's there." And when I came out of the cinema, I was like, how the hell did that film make me do that? You know what I mean? And then I realized it wasn't about special effects. It was about the writing and the directing. And then I investigated and directing and stuff like that. And then that was the thing that turned me to writing and directing films like Spielberg. And when I was in school, Spielberg was my hero. Everybody else was learning how to drive, getting good clothes, getting girlfriends. I was still reading comics and reading magazines about, Starlog and Starburst, about certain films that were coming out. It was not only me, it was a couple of my friends as well. We were all geeks and stuff. So yeah, if I was a fly on the wall, I really love to. I've read almost everything about that film. I know. Not Kathleen Kennedy. What's her name? Julia Phillips was drugged up when she was making that film. I know that because that's not highly talked about either. I know when they were in that set, when all the set at the ending, it was so hot that everybody was passing out. I read the Bob Balaban book. I know a hell of a lot about Close Encounters. The one person I want to meet is Steven Spielberg because he is the one that made me poor. He is the one. And I've got words for him, but I'd really like to meet him and shake his hand and say thank you for all the enjoyment, because almost every one of his films I enjoyed. Some of his latest films ain't very good, but the way he directs is absolutely amazing. That guy's amazing. So if I can be as quarter of as good as him, I'd be happy. You know what I mean? But yes, Close Encounters or ET even, I'd love to be on set just to see the way he directs.
Ian, thank you so much for being here today. I mean, this was awesome. Where can people find your stuff? Do you have like a central hub, or plug away anything you want to plug away?
Well, if you type in Rebecca Gold, you'll come against the YouTube channel, and it's got the Killing Zone on there. It's got Fallen Angel. It's got hasn't got Bad Day because they pulled it, obviously. But it's got other stuff. I've done some short films on there as well. Also, it's got exclusive clip from Rebecca Gold season 2. And that's where you can find them. And also, I do a lot of live streams as well. I'm on the Brown Alliance tonight. I do live streams about movies, and what we think of Marvel and stuff like that. So I'm around. I'm known as the Mega Geek. Lord knows why. There you go. There you go.
I want to give Ian another huge shout out for coming on the channel. Him and I actually talked for a little bit after we stopped recording, and just had a really nice conversation about our goals and kind of what the future looks like for us. So I appreciate him coming on and spreading all of his wisdom that he's gained over the last 30 years or so. Of course, all of Ian's stuff will be linked in the description if you want to check anything out. And of course, if you like this interview, I definitely appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel or any of the other platforms you may be listening to this on. If you want to help support me, my feature film, Cashing Out, is linked in the description, of course. And if you're watching or listening to this on YouTube, I will also have a couple other things here on screen that you may find of interest. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.